Qin Tian rushed back to the cave until the night faded and dawn was approaching. Inside the cave, Qin Tian was unsettled, listening intently as the chaotic night finally calmed down, and he let out a sigh of relief. The beast that had charged out from the Kunlun mountain range was incredibly powerful. If he hadn't escaped quickly, Qin Tian feared he would have become its meal. Why would a beast come out of the Kunlun mountain range? This is just the outskirts of Kunlun. There shouldn't be a fifth-tier beast, right? From the brutal roar we heard earlier, it seems to have been attacked. If that's the case, maybe an adventuring team is entering this hunting ground. If that's the case, things are about to get interesting. The sudden change disrupted the stillness. The beast that had come from Kunlun was indeed a fifth-tier creature, the violent King Kong ape. Not only did it refine a crystal core, but it also cultivated a divine ability, Rampage. In Rampage mode, all of its strength, speed, and defense doubled. Under the influence of its demonic power, it could enter Rampage 3 times consecutively. Its massive body, when enraged, created a terrifying scene. Divine abilities were a level beyond ordinary techniques. They were unique powers that one could create, comprehend, and manifest through their own conditions or abilities. It was extremely difficult to cultivate such abilities. Even top-tier cultivators, such as those in the Qian Kun realm, or even those who had reached the pinnacle of the Great Perfection realm, would struggle to comprehend them throughout their lives. Rampage, the divine ability of the violent King Kong ape, was the result of it fusing its strength with the laws of power. Though it was only a beginner-level divine ability, it could double the beast's power instantly. This was sufficient to deal with experts at the peak of the Gathering Spirit realm. Qin Tian sat cross-legged, focusing on adjusting his internal energy. He hadn't rested all night and was extremely tired. Before he knew it, he had fallen asleep. Ah! In the morning, a piercing scream echoed through the cave, so sharp that it made his ears ache. Qin Tian opened his eyes and saw Yun Man, clutching her chest and staring at him in fear. Seeing her expression, he felt a bit irritated and said, "What's all the screaming about?" You, there's blood everywhere on you." Yun Man crouched down, looking at him with a fearful expression. Qin Tian glanced at the bloodstains on his clothes, which had turned dark. He scratched his head and thought, "I didn't have time to clean myself after running yesterday." After slaying hundreds of beasts the night before, Qin Tian's clothes were stained with their blood. When he returned to the cave, he was so exhausted that he sat down to meditate and fell asleep instantly. Now, he noticed the foul smell on his clothes. He frowned and said, "It's beast blood. I'll go wash it off." After that, Qin Tian stood up, walked to the entrance of the cave, and looked around. Not spotting any beasts, he decided to wash up in a stream at the foot of the mountain. Just as he stepped out, Yun Man hurried to follow, but kept her distance, as if she were afraid of him. Qin Tian glanced back at her, but paid no further attention and continued walking down the mountain. Yun Man trailed behind, murmuring to herself, like a little girl mumbling her thoughts. When they reached the foot of the mountain, Qin Tian washed up and then turned to Yun Man, who was still hesitating a little distance away. "Come wash your face, coward!" "You're the coward!" Yun Man retorted, looking at the dirt on her clothes. She glared at Qin Tian and walked toward the stream. Recalling how Yun Man had fainted from fear yesterday, Qin Tian couldn't help but laugh. "Do you know you passed out from fear yesterday?" I didn't." Yun Man's face turned bright red as she tried to act composed, though she stammered. But when she thought about how Qin Yang had killed Qin Shan, she couldn't help but feel terrified. As a martial cultivator, killing others was a normal part of life. It was survival of the fittest. But Yun Man couldn't bring herself to kill anyone, not even look at such scenes. The bloody sight had made her faint on the spot. Qin Tian washed his face in the cool mountain spring water and sat on a rock, watching Yun Man. She crouched by the stream, gently cupping water in her hands to splash her face. The soft sunlight bathed her in its glow, the water droplets on her face shimmering like pearls, radiating a sense of eternal purity. Her innocence was more pure than the stream itself, and Qin Tian had never seen such a pure girl. She was so beautiful, it made his heart race. "Hey, what are you staring at?" Yun Man turned her head and caught Qin Tian looking at her. Her heart raced, and she nervously touched her flushed face, angrily muttering to herself. With how scared you are, how did you dare join the autumn hunt? I'm not scared. I'm Yunman, fearless. You've got a snake behind you. Ah! Where? Where? Yunman screamed dramatically and jumped straight into the stream. She turned around and realized Qintian had been fooling her. Immediately, her face puffed up, her hands on her hips, and she glared at Qintian, angrily huffing and cursing in her heart. Ha ha! Qintian laughed exaggeratedly, feeling a bit of a thrill from teasing her. Standing in the stream with the sun behind her, a strand of her hair fell, and Yunman delicately lifted it with her pinky, looking like an angel descending to the mortal world. Qintian couldn't tear his eyes away. Suddenly, as his gaze moved along the stream, he noticed something and smiled. Breakfast is ready. What's ready? Yunman asked curiously. Stay still, Qintian said, running up to her, his eyes fixed on her feet in the stream, his face showing excitement. Yunman froze in place as she felt something sliding around her feet. It was slippery and a bit itchy, which made her uneasy. What is that on my feet? Don't look down. Whatever you do, don't look. Qintian warned, afraid that if she looked down, she'd be startled by a large catfish and jump away, scaring it off. Please, for breakfast, don't move. Yunman's body trembled as she was sure there was something down there, and it wasn't small. She felt something soft, sliding between her feet like a snake. Thinking it was a snake, her face turned pale. Is it a snake? She stuttered. Qintian carefully waded into the water, his focus on the stream and not on Yunman. He noticed her trembling and thought, she's really too scared. Suddenly, with lightning speed, his hands shot down to grab something beneath her feet. Ah! Yunman screamed, throwing herself onto Qintian's back and clinging to him like an octopus, wrapping her arms tightly around his neck. Qintian felt two soft masses pressing against his back. He gritted his teeth, bracing himself, and quickly scooped the large catfish from the water. He sighed with relief and slapped Yunman's firm backside. All right, coward. Seeing the catfish flopping on the shore, Yunman relaxed, but remembered she was still clinging to Qintian's back. She had her hands around his neck, and the slap on her rear had made her face flush bright red, like a ripe fruit. She quickly jumped off Qintian and avoided looking at him. Qintian didn't care. His stomach was growling, and all he could think about was filling it first. Looking at the large catfish, he couldn't help but drool. Grilling fish was his specialty. In his past life in the orphanage, he had been the king of children, able to do anything, from climbing mountains to diving into rivers. Before long, he had gutted the fish, gathered some dry branches, built a simple rack, and lit a fire. Soon, the delicious smell of roasted fish filled the air. Yunman stood off to the side, watching Qintian hustle and bustle. The tempting smell of fish made her stomach growl. She unconsciously drooled a little. Come eat when you're hungry, Qintian called from the fire, his attention still on the fish, the scent making his hunger unbearable. At that moment, Yunman couldn't resist any longer. She hurried over, squatting next to Qintian, grinning. Is it ready yet? Almost. It smells so good. Of course. Go catch another one, and let me eat this one. Qintian stared at her, eyes wide. This girl really has guts. Oh, stop looking at me like that. I'll get embarrassed. Qintian said nothing. All right. You eat the head and tail, and I'll have the body. Hehe, it's decided. As the aroma of the fish spread, Qintian suddenly realized something crucial. He had forgotten that this was the Kunlun border mountain range, a place teeming with dangerous beasts. The feeling of danger suddenly surged within him.